So what is the Sustainability Solutions Festival? This is an annual event that is sponsored by the Rob and Melani Walton Family Foundation at Arizona State University's Rob and Melani Walton Sustainability Solution Service. Our goal is to help change behavior for sustainability around the world. So we thought it would be an awesome opportunity to share with educators and students alike how to bring virtual field trips into their classroom with this session. So for the festival, I have an ask for you today is to join us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can visit our website. Educators, we have a great opportunity for your students also coming up with our Sustainability Solutions Science Fair, which is launching on May 1st. Students have a chance to win up to $32,000 in cash prizes with this opportunity. So visit our website. We have educational tools as well, and follow us on social media. Today's session, Creating Virtual Tours for Environmental Storytelling, is in partnership with Jessica Swann and Sina Kirk. Jessica is a ninth grade science teacher, turned Earth and Space advocate through management of communities of practice and support of K-12 teachers and students. She currently works with NASA programming under the Infiniscope and Scope projects. Presenting with her is Sina Kirk. As the Educational Outreach Coordinator for the NASA Infiniscope project, Sina supports educators through professional development, sharing resources, and fostering of community of practice. Before joining in the Infiniscope team, she taught sciences in grades 6 through 12. Sina is passionate about the power of technology to transform the learning experience for all students, and I hope that that's shared with you all today. So thank you so much for joining us, and I will hand it off to Sina and Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us and that fantastic introduction. We too have an all-star cast with us today. We will be bringing more with us when we come back next week. Let me do a quick screen share here. And also let me verify, is everyone actually able to see my screen share in the appropriate format? Yes, it says loading. Thumbs up, we're good. Outstanding. All right, so today we are here together to talk about creating virtual tours for environmental storytelling. So we are incredibly excited to bring this to you today because this is literally a decade's worth of work coming to you as educators to be able to tell your stories that you want to share with the students that you have in your classroom. So as Kelly mentioned, I am Jessica Swann, and also with me is Sina Kirk. We both work for the Center for Education Through Exploration at Arizona State University. And then also with us on the line today, we have two educators that will be speaking with you today. You'll see that we have John Dupuy. He is a high school educator out of the Louisiana area. And we also have Sarah Bowman with us, who is a middle school educator from the LA area. Next week, you'll have an opportunity to meet Jeff Bruce, who is our manager for immersive technologies here in the ETX Center. And you'll also meet Tom Roberto, who is also here on the line. So if you put some questions in chat, it's possible he might answer some of your questions along the way. But he's actually a doctoral candidate here at ASU, and he's doing his work around virtual field trips and virtual tours. So this is your cast of characters who will be guiding you across the next couple of days together. I guess it's a week together. General overview for today. We're going to talk a little bit about what is this thing called Infiniscope? Where did it come from? What is a virtual field trip or a virtual tour? We're also going to talk a little bit about the types of VFTs and virtual tours that we've built along the way and where we see them going in the future. We'll talk a little bit about our plans or what we did last year for our summer professional development, and then offer an opportunity for show and tell between John and Sarah to share their experiences in creating virtual tours with us last summer. And then there'll be a couple of spots along the way where you can kind of dig into some of these resources and play along, and you can kind of work together and do some brainstorming. All right, I am the type of person who likes to hit the ground running, so let's get started. So what is Infiniscope? So we have our superpower, and this is our origin story. So as I said previously, we are from the Center for Education Through Exploration at Arizona State University, and we have combined our efforts with NASA to create Earth Infiniscope. So everything that we do technically is related to NASA's Earth and space science. So when we build our content, we infuse NASA content and data and imagery into all of our learning experiences. When I talk about learning experiences, we're talking digital learning experiences. And all of these digital learning experiences incorporate what we call the learner feedback loops. And within our center, we really like to rely on this feedback loop of you try something, you receive feedback, you then revise it and you try again, which is directly aligned with the scientific inquiry process. This is exactly what we want our students to understand. We want them to understand that failure is an option and we learn from failure over time. So we do build in these feedback loops for our students when we build all of these digital learning experiences so that they can too learn from their failure and improve into their next iteration. So as I said, we are digital. And so what we do is we provide experiential learning. So it's fully immersive for our students, fully interactive. And technically what we build is for all ages. We call it cradle to gray. So anyone can come to our website, anyone can play through any of our learning experiences, but the content is very specifically targeted to ages from middle school to high school. So typically 5th grade all the way through, I don't know, we typically end up in the higher ed realm. So freshman, sophomore in college also are using our content. What you see here is just a screenshot from our website. We have a variety of content that is available. We have space explorations, we have Earth explorations, and then all members of our network also gain access to our visualization library. So everyone gains access to the simulations that we create. So you can use just the simulation, you can use just the raw virtual field trip with none of the adaptive stuff. And then we also have community created content, contributed content. So we have members of our community who are building similar immersive digital learning experiences and then sharing them out with the rest of the community so that they too can benefit from the lessons that they create. So they can create those lessons from their own raw materials, or they can use some of the visualizations that we provided or other visualizations that they find out on the internet. And as I also said, what we do is leverage NASA assets because we are in coordination. The Infiniscope project specifically is in coordination with NASA. We try very hard, or not try, we do. We build NASA content and imagery into everything that we do. So what you see here is a virtual field trip that we have created and taken students to Mars. So this is something that's called Red Rocks, and the students are taken to locations here around Earth, and they learn a little bit why these rocks are red here on Earth and their different depositional environments. Then we take them to Mars and they try to figure out, well, why is Mars red? We see the red rock here on Earth. Are there similarities on Mars? It's incredibly powerful when it comes to getting students immersed in their learning because now they feel like they are part of that environment. And so that's one of the things that we love about virtual field trips and simulations. It actually enables the student to actually feel like they have their boots on the ground. Obviously, the next iteration is to take it into the VR goggles because then you really feel like you're boots on the ground. And we are playing in those spaces also. And then, as I mentioned previously, we are adaptive to learner needs. The great thing about using what's called an adaptive learning platform is it allows you to create these feedback loops for students that not only level up, but also level down. So they are kind of choosing their own adventure. Sometimes they make decisions about what they want to explore, and other times we have to force them down pathways to help fill in knowledge gaps and misconceptions, to help them better understand content that they may not understand, or give them some agency because they feel like they want to level up. So for example, what you see here is our learning experience called Moon Phases. And in moon phases, the students actually get to choose if they want to go an advanced route or if they want to go a basic route to learn about the moon phases. And what we find is when we test these kind of things in the classroom, students that you typically would not students you typically would not find choosing the more advanced pathways will in fact choose the more advanced pathways because they want to feel that challenge. And they also know that if they fail, they can go back to the beginner pathway and they can start again or try again. So when we build simulations, we try to make sure that we are addressing the needs of the classroom. We do a lot of market research to identify what are the issues that we know that students are having and teachers are having when they're teaching this particular content. So when you look at moon phases specifically, we designed that particular learning experience so that the visualization allows the student to transition in three-dimensional space. Because typically, if you've ever seen moon phase curriculum, what you see is we present students the bird's eye view of the solar system, and then they're also given the view of what it is that we see here on Earth as far as the moon phases, but nobody ever integrates those and puts them together for the students. There's this expectation that students are supposed to be able to, excuse me, put themselves in this three-dimensional space and automatically understand how the world works. So we do that transition for them. So another reason why 360-degree views are so critical is helping to build students in three-dimensional space so that they are able to connect, make those mental connections. What we find in research is that, you know, we can try to teach kids how to see things in three-dimensional space, but sometimes it's not actually a learnable skill. It's not a teachable skill. So just putting them in that space so that they can understand why things work is way better than making an assumption that they can eventually learn how to put themselves in three-dimensional space. Additionally, part of Infiniscope is we have a community of practice, and we have an incredibly robust community of practice. Currently, we have more than 4,000 members that are within our network. And within our network is just a snapshot of some of the leaders that we have amongst our membership. A couple that I want to point out here is Dr. Sina Proctor. If you haven't heard, there is some civilians that are going to be going to space via SpaceX. And Dr. Sina Proctor is going to be one of the members of the Innovation 4 crew. She is a member of our network. She's also built a virtual field trip called Solar Energy VFT. And that is available for all of the members of our network. A couple of other things to point out. We have a published author in our midst. So Dr. Toni Holden McGee is actually, she's a co-author on a book. We have a NESTA regional director. We have NASA STEM programming. We have the presidential awardees. And that's just a snapshot of the people that are within our network. We have an entire fabric of people and experiences and skill sets that are all within the network. And many of those people are actually here on the line with us today. As I was looking at the attendee list, it's incredible to see how many of our members come in and support us, even when we go to do these presentations that they've seen probably 10 times before. So there's a lot of power to the community that we have. And as I said, we have this contributed content. So what you get when you mix more than 4,000 members in your network and you have a digital catalog of more than 36 items and you have 16 teacher created virtual field trips and created content is you have more than 120,000 people who have launched your content over the course of the past 5 years. 25,000 of those have launched in the last 4 months. So what we find is that our continued growing of our catalog and offering an opportunity for our educators to dig in and start creating their own virtual field trips and also training kids how to create virtual field trips is just, and COVID, let's you know, admit that COVID has part of it, you know, they're responsible too, those little viruses, because digital is important now. And so, you know, being in this digital realm and having good, high quality digital content that is standards aligned that you can use right off the shelf is incredibly important. Okay, so that's who we are. This is kind of what our vision is and why we do, what we really care about. We care that it's immersive, we care that it's adaptive, We care that, that kids are getting into those 360-degree environments. So let's talk a little bit about, well, what is a virtual field trip or a virtual tour? And I'm going to use those things interchangeably. And part of the reason you're going to hear me use that interchangeably is because we are transitioning our language within our organization. So as I'm learning new words and trying to assimilate them into my brain, I'll probably flip back to virtual field trips periodically. Okay, so what is a virtual tour? So as you can probably expect, a virtual tour is something that allows people to go on a field trip, that you can virtually go to a place, a location, and you can access it, and we can encourage others to become familiar with that place, to learn more deeply about that place. What I have here is a picture of Montezuma's Castle in the background, and that is located just about 40 minutes north of Phoenix. And this is a fantastic place to go and learn a little bit about the Native American culture that's like right here in our own backyard. And we can't get up there, we can't climb up there, it's barricaded, but we can take pictures from the ground, we can take 360-degree views from the ground. But I could also go out on the internet and I could find drone footage taken from above the ground where people have taken 360-degree sphericals, and that can be something I can leverage to help me tell the stories that I want to be able to tell, or what the important instructional things are to share with my students. So virtual field trips enable or empower us to be able to share educationally rich content with our students that we just can't physically do with a textbook or written word. So, as I've already alluded to, virtual field trips and virtual tours, these things enable storytelling. And you're going to hear a lot about storytelling because we really emphasize that storytelling aspect. We want students to have a sense of place. The more students experience place and connection to place, the more they care about place. And as we transition from training teachers how to create their own virtual field trips to training kids how to create their own virtual field trips, they begin to care more about the environments that they are collecting and that they are sharing with the world. So this is why we think it's incredibly important when it comes to sustainability, is getting our students out there and capturing the stories within their own communities so that they can share those stories within their community and outside of their community. They will become more attached to their community. And when Tom speaks with us next week, he's going to share a little bit about the research and something that's called a place attachment survey that we do with our students, and some of the results that we see when it comes to students establishing a sense of place when creating their own virtual field trips. Additionally, it allows us to ensure preservation. So just as I talked about here with Montezuma's Castle, I can't get access to Montezuma Castle. That's intentional because people destroy things, many times unintentionally, but the more traffic that you have there, the more likely it is to tear it down. So we protect it, we barricade it, but it gives us all the ability. A virtual field trip allows us to be able to explore a place that we are attempting to preserve. And then finally, it allows us accessibility. I mean, the reality is that not everything is accessible. The reality is not every student can get to some of these places. The reality is real field trips. What have happened to your real field trips over the course of the last decade? Many of them have gone away. There's busing schedules that are an issue. It's always money that's an issue. Now it's COVID that's an issue. All of the issues that are keeping us from taking our students out and enriching their lives in the field trips that we used to do. Now we can do some of those things virtually to bring those things that we used to care about instructionally to our students. Okay, so that's what a virtual field trip is, or a virtual tour is. Let's talk about some of the types. So from our perspective, there are two types. There are two types that we have created. So let's put that out there. I'm not defining these are the types of virtual tours. These are kind of how we categorize them within our organization based on what we've done over the last decade. So we have something that we would call tours, and then we have something that we call adaptive, ETX adaptive. So examples of tours would be, and actually let me get you all, hold on. Now I have completely messed up my entire display, but let me share this website with you all. So many of the things that I'm going to share with you right now in our timeline come from this website. So that is the VFT website. So the virtual field trip website actually came before Infiniscope did. And much of what we based our proposal on for the Infiniscope project did in fact come from that virtual field trip website and another community built on higher ed principles. But as I go through and kind of give you a sense of like what path we've taken over the course of the last decade, you can kind of follow along and you can kind of explore some of those virtual field trips as we go, and then bookmark it because I'm sure you guys are going to want to visit it again later. So the very first virtual tours or virtual field trips that were ever built under the ETX flag are things from Australia, from the Flinders region. So there are about 6 different virtual field trips that you can find in that particular catalog that come from Flinders region, Australia, and it tells all of these stories about early life. Now those virtual field trips they include the 360-degree sphericals, they include images, they include videos, and they include links to be able to jump to other 360-degree views with links and videos. So the one thing that those don't have is what we call the adaptive pathways. So students have agency to be able to go and explore the tour in any sequence that they want. They can open any content that they want, but there's no instructional gating. So if you wanted to stop your students and you only wanted them to look at one 360-degree view and ask them some questions, you can't do that with a tour. So that's the distinction between the tour and the tour. Now I'm really enunciating the U, and Sina was making fun of me about the way I say tour. So anyway, apparently the word is tour. Is that right? She's still laughing at me.
Oh, I don't know what the proper one is. I say tour, you say tour.
Okay, well, I'm really enunciating it now. But anywho, so the basis of a tour is simple. It really is. It's legitimately a tour. It's just like if you are going to go to a museum, you don't have a docent. You're just kind of wandering around. You're exploring the exhibits on your own time, and you're exploring the exhibits as deeply or as shallowly as you would like. So the very first things, as I said, was this Flinders region. And then we moved on to Shark Bay. And Shark Bay is massive, also in Australia. And it's also categorized as a tour, but the volume of content that you can choose from, and literally it's hours of content, hours and hours and hours of content. You will learn so much about Shark Bay, the stromatolites, the environment, why Shark Bay is kind of briny compared to the rest of the area. What types of fish are there? I mean, it's a really deep learning experience. But again, it is just a tour because it doesn't include any of that gating. As we progress through the ETX history, we then started partnering with adaptive platforms that enabled us to be able to put some gating in. Actually, I'm ahead of myself. Our immersive technology director, Jeffrey, that you will meet next week, actually is able to build that gating into the virtual field trips. So because we have our own technical expertise located here in-house, he's building these things. So what you see up here is, this one is biological anthropology. I think that's what this one is called. So this one is literally all about bones. And it's all about trying to solve mystery from the bones that you see. And he made this learning experience fully adaptive, but he does it all in the virtual field trip platform. Then we partner with an adaptive platform company, and we start creating, he builds these virtual tours, that we then take the tour and we embed it into the adaptive platform. And that enabled non-developers to then begin building their own adaptive lessons. So let me translate. I don't have to be a developer now to create something that's adaptive and gated for my students, because now I'm using a platform that allows me to do that. So that's what you see here with Red Rocks. And then from there, we just get more sophisticated in our ability to build things with the back end. So I also want to share with you the Wells Fargo National Park, or Wells Fargo Yosemite National Park. That one actually is what specifically brought us to the Sustainability Festival. Sina, if you have the link to that, would you by chance be able to post that over into the chat for the group? I highly recommend going through that, but you will not find that on the VFT website, and you will not find that on the Infiniscope website, because that was an externally funded project with Wells Fargo. You also will not find any standards alignment with that, or any like physical documentation for deployment in your classroom. So I just wanted to be clear on that. So it's not built necessarily for the classroom, but I'm sure you will find it instructionally relevant and be able to use it in your classroom. And then finally, we also have the most recent, most robust thing that Jeffrey has built. Jeffrey is the man, is what I'm going to tell you. He's not here, but he is the man. And when you get to meet him next week, you'll understand why. He has built this thing called Surviving Extinction. It's literally a game. And it is a game that follows the dinosaurs, and they have to survive extinction events. And not follow the dinosaurs. You have to select an organism that you are trying to create that is present day. And you have to trace it all the way back to the origins. And you've got to go through predation and climate changes and choices. And you got to eat the right foods, and you got to choose if you're going to run away or if you're going to fight. It's a lot of things. And if you survive, you make it to present day. That is in fact on the VFT website that I shared with you. It is fully adaptive because it is legitimately a game. So you can't do things unless you earn coins along the way. All right, so I feel like I've painted the picture well, that we have tours that are completely ungated, and then we have these things that are adaptive, that are gated and allow us to push students down instructionally relevant pathways that we care about as instructors. So the next phase of ETX is bringing in Infiniscope, because we specialize in educators. And what we want to do is to train teachers how to create tours. We want to train kids how to create tours. And then when our next version of an adaptive platform is ready, January, when our next version of an adaptive platform is ready, we want to train those same teachers how to take the tours that they've built, put it into an adaptive platform, and gate it so that it is instructionally relevant for you and what you hope to do with your students in the classroom. So that's our big vision. And then I need to show this video. Sina told me I have to share this video, but I just realized I got to stop because I didn't share it properly in order to share the video. So let me try one more time. Stop share and reshare. And Sarah will be all embarrassed because she's in this video too. But this video is we specifically created this video for NASA last year. And the reason that we created it was because we wanted to share what we did last year in training our educators how to create their own tours. Okay. Now I am officially ready.
Tonight, we're diving into how one university, already on the cutting edge of virtual learning, is helping teachers and students adapt.
Infiniscope, as part of the Center for Education Through Exploration, we have years of experience in high quality online teaching and learning. Knowing that these teachers were struggling in engaging their students, we wanted to create this workshop over the summer where we could leverage our experience and help them be able to create their own virtual field trips.
Our research shows that in-person experiences are decreasing, and not all students enjoy equal access to field-based learning because of cost, safety, time, distance, physical ability, and instructor variability. So in our mind, virtual field trips may be the only practical option for most students to explore pedagogically rich but inaccessible places.
I definitely was looking for new ways to engage my students. We're fortunate during the regular school year to be able to take a few field trips. When I heard that this was the way to incorporate that remotely, I was like, yes.
I have to have this experience of creating virtual field trips for kids if I want to keep them engaged. So that's why I took the course. And more importantly is the idea of place-based learning. How do I take a place and create this immersive experience, but then allows the students to be able to learn the content through that place? How can they look at the place differently? How can you make them curious, explore the place, and discover things that they didn't know existed about the place?
Virtual field trips, by definition, are place-based learning experiences. Sense of place leads to emotional and intellectual attachments, which in turn can impact knowledge, attitude, and behavior.
They experience the sounds, the sights, the feeling of being in the place. And that provides a learning experience which is deep and is retained for a longer time than just textbook learning.
I want them to look at some of the ruins in 360 and get a sense of the enormity of it, why this place is important to human culture, and why we study it.
Our ultimate goal with this was that teachers actually had a product that they could take directly into the classroom in the fall. Something that they could use whether they are still teaching online, whether they're teaching in person, whether it's hybrid. Teachers had a lot of question marks about the return to school. So giving them a lesson that is an online lesson that they can deploy right out of the gate, that was our goal.
We're trying to flip the model and democratize the production of virtual field trips. If we can teach instructors the nuts and bolts of VFT development and they become comfortable with the process, then the real excitement is teachers can begin assigning the production of VFTs to their students. It seems to me that the greatest learning outcomes will not come from students who simply consume a VFT, but from students who actually produce a virtual field trip.
Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and transition to Sina now, and she's going to talk a little bit about what we did last summer and get you guys into some of these tours. Sina?
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Hold on. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have kept screen sharing. My apologies. Nope, that's your desktop.
Can you see my presentation?
That's your desktop.
Dang it.
See, you all are not the only ones. It still happens to us too.
Let's try that again.
You want me to share?
This one? Hold on. Now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that summer workshop that we did last year that Sarah and John, our educators, were actually participants in. This was a 4-day workshop that we did. We had, it was an hour and a half each day. So there was some pre-work and there was a little bit of homework that went in with that. We had 43 educators, and our goal was really to give them all of the tools and the knowledge that they needed in order to walk away at the end of those 4 days with a product that they could use with their students. And so in that, in those 4 days, in order to build the virtual tour and incorporate those elements of storytelling that Jessica talked about, and that sense of attachment to the place and the emotional experience of the virtual tour, there's quite a bit of planning that has to go into that. And so we walk through all the planning steps, the storyboarding, dealing with Creative Commons licensing and things like that. So it was a very kind of in-depth workshop to really give teachers all of the support that they needed in order to build this thing and be able to deploy it with their students in the fall. And as a result of that workshop, we have a small catalog of these virtual tours that were created by teachers. So I'm going to kind of point you towards those, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of time to explore so that you'll kind of get a sense of what the virtual tour kind of can look like, and maybe just start to sort of spark your imagination about the types of things that you could capture in order to bring into your classrooms. So if you've got another browser tab or another window, I'm going to ask you to go to infiniscope.org, and you should see our nebula there, the Star Party banner. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to get there. So
Thank you, Sarah.
oh, did you pop it in the chat?
Yep.
Lovely, thank you.
Teamwork.
And once you are there, you'll notice that in that announcement banner, there's a left and a right arrow at the top. If you click on the right arrow, I think it's 2 or 3 times until you get to something that says teacher created VTs. Those of you who have your cameras on, thank you. I can kind of see those heads nodding and giving me some feedback that it looks like most of us are there, so thank you. And when you get there and you click on teacher created VTs and then the full description button, you should have something that looks like this. So you'll have sort of a small catalog of these virtual tours that our educators created. So just kind of browse through the titles there and identify 1 or 2 that are of interest to you. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of time to explore those. And I will say that the environmental science tour and the, I think it's called 50,000 miles, I would walk 50,000 miles. Those are the ones that Sarah and John created. And I think they're going to be at least showing you some of the scenes from those later. So you might want to choose a different one to kind of look through, or you might want to give yourself a preview. It's up to you. Whichever one you decide that you'd like to take a look at, go ahead and click the launch button. And you'll notice there's a couple of different scenes. On each scene, there's some spots that you can interact with. So it really is kind of a rich experience. So I want to give you the proper time to explore those and come up with some of your own ideas. So I'm going to stop for a moment and I'm going to see if there's any questions or if anybody needs any guidance in reaching that spot. Feel free to pop any questions into the chat or use your microphones. I don't want to leave you for 15 minutes without making sure that you all made it to the right spot. All right, I can't actually see the chat. So Jessica, is there anything I need to be aware of?
Nope, we got it covered.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer then. And we're going to come back in about 15 minutes and we can move on from there.
Denise has a good question about the Google Poly.
Okay. So last year, when we did this tour, we used the Google Tour Creator, which if you go to any of these things, you'll notice that there's a banner up there that says that they're no longer supporting it. So the good news is that we now have a tool that, that we've built that you'll be able to create virtual field trips or virtual tours with. It is not quite in the mass release stage, but we're hoping to have it out shortly. And the following week, next week when we meet again, you'll be able to see a preview of that and get more details on when it's coming out and all of those wonderful things. Did I cover all of that? Awesome. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer and I'll see you in 15 minutes. Okay, and we're just about out of time here. So I hope you had an opportunity to explore some of those virtual tours, kind of get a sense for the types of things that, that are possible in them. And here we go, next one. Now we're going to do a little show and tell. So John and Sarah, who attended that workshop that I spoke about, are here today. They're going to talk to you a little bit about kind of their experience in building their virtual tours, how they've used them, maybe what inspired them. They kind of have their own, they can speak about whatever they'd like to, but those types of things to give you a sense of what were their motivations? How did they decide what to pick? What did they like about it? How have they used it with their students? So I'm going to turn the floor over to them. John, Sarah, anybody want to volunteer to kind of go first?
Sure, I'll go.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, of course, this is one of the ones that was just available on the through the Infiniscope website. To start off my interest in doing this, a couple of years ago, I went to our technology integration specialist just in the hallway and said, virtual reality is going to, I know virtual reality is going to be something, whether it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15, whatever, that kids are going to be doing in the classroom. It's just inevitable. It's going to happen. Don't know how it's going to take off, but when it does, I said I want to be a part of it. So getting involved with Infiniscope and then the opportunity to do VFTs, that was exactly what I wanted to do. So the training led us through the steps. It's not just taking pictures and putting them up there, which you can do, of course, but to make a great VFT, you have to have a system where you have planning, just like when you're planning a lesson. So to pick the topic I chose was just a tour of the things that are environmental science dealing with the school, the things that we've done over the years as a class. This first scene starts off at our butterfly garden. There's two scenes right here, two different locations, one on one side of a raised bed in our pollinator garden on the other side. And what's really nice about the, when you first land on the Google page, it'll do the little spin effect, which is kind of nice until you start dragging it around. And we were able to select different objects in here, a lot of the plants in here, so the students can click on them. You've got the hotspot, and then you can explain what it is. You can say as much or as little as you want to. You can just identify it or say something about it. So this was a good opportunity to do this. And the reason why I chose this one, this was done before school started, and there was a chance at that time that the students may not have been on campus in the very beginning of the year. They were on a hybrid A-B schedule, but this was there just in case. And also it serves it's a sense of place for me as a teacher. I can look back at these over time and see how things change, especially in the garden. And it also gives the kids a chance to see, we were able to use this one in class, even though they were, on the days they weren't there, I had them do an assignment with looking at it and finding certain objects in there. As far as building the VFT, it was somewhat straightforward. Looking back at it and trying to remember some of the details of what it was like. Getting the pictures, taking the pictures was probably the easiest part. And then there was another part about getting them uploaded. There were some types that were working okay, some that weren't, which one of the things I want to say that I just thought about tonight, I think we are with VFTs like we were when we had the first VCR. And now we're all the way to, we're past DVDs for the most part, and we're streaming things. So this is something I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that in its infancy, and it's just kind of neat to be here. Okay. And the future plans for the VFT is to have a VFT. It's very complex when trying to teach in the classroom, and with a lot of things that I have to create on my own. The complex issues tied with Louisiana's land loss, mainly coastal land loss, and it's tied to the Mississippi River. Just real short, flooding in the Mississippi River caused levees to go up. That's just one of the reasons that has led to the cause of massive loss over the years of land. And to be able to go to the places, the Mississippi River, there's flood control structures, to go to the different wetlands and show where the land doesn't look like it should be because there's open water, it's not land. Those are all things that I can do in a VFT that I could not take the kids. Even on one field trip, we would be missing the other spots. And this enables me to do that and do it easily and share with other educators in Louisiana. So that's my main goal, and hopefully this summer I'll be able to get some of that done into maybe a beta form, so to speak, and to be able to keep improving on it. All right, so if Sarah has some things.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I actually signed up for the training because as COVID struck, educators were suddenly having to bridge that digital divide for ourselves, let alone for our students. All of my spring field trips had been canceled, and I was like, well, I really want my kids to experience these places, whether or not we can go to them in real life. When I found out about the training, I jumped on it immediately, like I said in the video, very enthusiastically. And honestly, out of a folder worth of trainings, this is one of the only ones that I have consistently re-referenced and tried to build into my teaching daily. So I'm going to share really quick my screen with you to give you a little background. I am one of the outliers who took the summer course. I was really excited to do this with history and historical locations. Science, definitely. Exploring places we can't physically get to, that was very appealing. But I wanted to start bridging more of the idea of science with history. A lot of times history is considered soft. We don't discuss archaeological digs, how museums catalog and reference evidence, and how we piece that together to actually come up with theories of how people lived, how they organized their governments, their spaces, and how they disappeared. So that's how I walked into the training, wanting to set up learning as a journey and helping to contextualize place for my students. So my very first virtual field trip, I decided to do it based on wrapping up what we had learned about Rome, and it randomly struck me all roads lead to Rome. And I was like, well, I'm sure my kids have heard that 100 times, but do they actually know what it means? And so over the summer, I planned around that idea. They taught us how to use place as a character, how to make connections, and how to bridge those denser, more complex questions that we want our kids asking and being able to use inferential thinking to answer. And so I broke it down into why do all roads lead to Rome? Why do those roads still exist? How do they connect to us here today? We all step on roads daily. And connecting back to that complexity that it shows Imperial Rome truly had. And so this was my virtual field trip. I would walk 50,000 miles. I had to do another pun with the I would walk 500 miles song. In my research, I found that there's an estimated 50,000 miles of Roman road that exists that we still can touch and walk on throughout the world. I built my virtual field trip a little differently than John. I used images that were open sourced so that I could borrow them from other people's tours and visits throughout the world. And then I was able to put them into Poly to let my students explore different sites. So this is a ruin of a villa. This is a Roman mosaic that was in a household. And the students can look at how they tiled their kitchen and how they put an especially decorative tile on the wall. All of my little info sections either have images or questions to help probe my students. In the next scene, it's a much more modern version of the Roman road. If you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't even guess. Sorry, my computer sometimes is a little draggy. But helping them bridge the past to the present. You wouldn't even know this site was special if you didn't know. And then finally, the main place the Roman road leads to, and it doesn't start on it, but eventually as the kids direct it and look around, you have the Colosseum. Very famous piece of architecture. So the way I approached it was we started by making it something we did together in class. I have some very visual learners in my room, and so I wanted to make sure that they understood how to use Poly. It's a very easy system. I'm sad it's going, but I'm hopeful for what replaces it. And to help them build their confidence in exploring these virtual spaces. Again, this is just a little bit of the process. I did some research, I worked on the digital tools storyboarding, and then with the outcome, hopefully, of releasing support. All of this was covered in depth in the training over the summer. I still reference my notebook, my flow charts to help me when I am designing subsequent virtual field trips. And again, it just goes back to that idea that I want my students to connect to a place that they might not be able to visit. And I want them to find those common human experiences that surround the buildings we choose to keep and the buildings we visit. And with the eventual idea, when COVID is officially over, we return to real life or a semblance of it, of having the students start to design and film their own virtual field trips and incorporate that as teaching their peers. Research over the years has definitely shown that when a student can teach about a topic, their learning is much deeper and much more ingrained in their memory. And so the virtual field trips are a beautiful way to tackle history, social change, a myriad of topics. We've covered a lot this year. I took what we learned in summer very to heart, and I've worked very hard to find virtual field trips or build them for almost every group of people and timeframes we've learned about in both 6th and 7th grade. There are a lot of great ones that are already available. And you briefly touched on ASU's Becoming Human. We followed this as a class and independently, and we were even able to go on an actual dig and explore where our ancestry came from. The kids were enthralled. They loved finding all the different places within this website. Similarly, you can find modern museums that now have virtual tours because of COVID. This is the most recent one we're doing for ancient Greece. We are looking at artifacts and an archaeological site that are all partnered together in this beautiful Greek museum that exists. And so you can go to any of these monuments and check them out. The students can get up close and personal. Some are better than others. Some are a little more explorable and movable. And they can also look at objects that have been unearthed. Again, giving them a little taste of that science, hard science of archaeology, bridging with history. And they can get up close and personal with many of these objects. It's kind of a choose your own adventure, as we've said, where they can go through and find what piques their interest. Equally, with my 7th graders, we were able to visit a museum early on that has a full Viking ship that was unearthed. And the kids could walk around it the way they wanted and be in the museum and visit. So there are many, many resources out there, and I have definitely been trying very hard to find them and integrate them with all of my lessons so that the students can really get up close and personal with many different places. Poly 360 cities, all are wonderful. There are some lovely kind of compilation pages that give you access to multiple virtual field trips at a time and link you directly to them. So all of a sudden you are on the ground, able to look around. And I apologize, it's loading a little slowly. But yes, a very wonderfully spent training over the summer.
That gorgeous equi rectangular you have there that will fit beautifully in a 360.
And yes, that is one of the key things I will tell you. Equi-rectangular is the word to search.
That was the number one thing people learned in our training.
360 cities is great too. You can drop right into many different sites and completely explore them live with the kids. You can also assign this for homework very easily within your school platforms. All I did was I took the archaeological site of Delphi. I put it as a link and a discussion for my students to be able to tell me what they saw, what they found interest in. I'm able to write back to them within the same day and help guide their thinking, and all their peers can also see it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really do want to take a minute here to thank Sarah and John for joining us today. Jessica and I are both former educators. We know how busy you all are, especially this time of year. So we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today and share your experiences. And now I'm going to go back to sharing my screen for this last part here. Awesome. Okay, so we are going to make a couple of breakout rooms. We want to give you an opportunity with each other to kind of talk about the stuff that you learned today and to maybe start to brainstorm some ways that virtual tours could be used either in your school in general or in your classroom. So for example, like in your classroom, maybe before the start of the school year, you want to give a virtual tour of your classroom to acquaint students with the different areas of your classroom where they can find things, that type of thing, or maybe at like a school-wide level. Those are just two, but there's 1,000 ways that you could probably come up with to use these. So I would like to give you a little bit of time to kind of chat, come up with some ideas, and connect with the other participants. So Kelly, if you could create a couple of breakout rooms for us, that would be. All right, welcome back, everyone.
I think it's my turn again, yeah?
Yes.
It is. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. Interesting conversations happening in all the rooms, so it's good to hear that everyone's got some vision and they have questions, and I hear a lot of passion and voices out there, so we are equally as excited as you are to talk about what's going to happen over this next week and next in the summer. So next time we come together, so we'll be here again next Wednesday, and as you know, Kelly will record that one too. So if you're unable to make it next Wednesday and you're like, oh, I just want to hear it, you'll have access to that recording. But next time we will talk a bit more, get a little deeper into the process of creating. So we'll give you a teaser into what will happen in our summer training. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the tools for creating. So we'll bring Jeffrey, the man, in to talk and give you a tour of the tool. We very specifically didn't want to reveal that today. He has put his heart and soul into that. So we want him to be the one to reveal it to you. So he'll be here next week, as will Tom, and Tom will be talking some other tech tips. He may even share just a smidge about his research, because I did plug that earlier today. And then finally, we will fill you in on all of our plans for summer training. Also, if you happen to be an Arizona teacher, we have another special plug to share with you. I know that's a very narrow number of you, but my Arizona teachers, I got a special offer that we'll talk about next week. So that is our entire time together. So we will go ahead and open the floor. We've got about 7 minutes left together. If you have last questions, you want to hang on here. We will be here if you just want to send us an email. Here's the email for both Sina and myself. You can connect to us via social media. You go to any social media and you type in @Infiniscope, you will find us. I will tell you that we have a community space on Facebook. So if you go to our Facebook page, you can find groups. You can request to become a member of our group. We also have one on Pinterest, so you can follow us on Pinterest. We just launched Pinterest last week. But you can also be part of our group board on Pinterest. So follow us in all of those places, and we look forward to hearing from you. Otherwise, we are open to your questions. There was a question about, are there more, after hours next week, are there other Wednesday meetings that are happening, Kelly?
Actually, next week is our last event for the 2021 Sustainability Solutions Festival, but we will be posting our calendar for 2022 And that starts February of every year. So the calendar will go up in September. But we do have the Sustainability Solution Science Fair opportunity for your students, middle school and high school. That'll launch on May 1st.
One other teaser I can share with you all that are still here, because I didn't talk about it as far as next week. You know, we talked a bit about, we want teachers to create virtual tours, and then we want to have students creating virtual tours. Right now, I have a PBL unit, project-based learning unit, that we've created. It's a 6-lesson unit, training kids how to do these exact things. It's currently in testing here locally at one of our middle schools. So we're going to see what kind of, excuse me, we're going to see what kind of tours the kids create. We're very excited for that. We do know that when we go to publicly launch that, currently you have, in order to use it, you have to use Canvas as your learning management system. So if you don't use Canvas, you'll have to wait a little longer. Actually, if you have something other than Canvas, not Schoology, Sarah, we already know the instances with Schoology. But if you use Blackboard, or if you use Moodle, or one of those other ones, and you're willing to let us test things out and you want to try it, let us know. We're looking for volunteers so we can see if it works or not.
I think our stuff is all through Google. Like it's all Google Classroom, all.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. That's good to know. Where are you located?
I'm in New Mexico, Albuquerque.
Okay. How many students do you have? How many students in your school?
We have like 450 students, but I have about 160 of them. I teach 8th grade science.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty good size.
Yeah, decent size. It's not like a huge school. It's kind of, we're kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I guess I should look at the chat. There might be questions there, huh?
There was a volunteer opportunity. John said he has Moodle.
Oh, outstanding, John. John, you're my go-to these days for all the things. John has volunteered to help us run one of these teacher workshops at the American Geophysical Union in December. So we'll be in New Orleans and we'll be training teachers to capture stories there in the New Orleans area. So
wow.
We're excited for that.
Well, thank you for all the information.
Absolutely. We look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye. All right, Kelly, I think we could probably close up. All right.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, John. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.